Hey guys, it's Spider1 back for doing another VoD review. Today we'll be looking at BlazzinBob in his CowLeague Minutemen victory. Bob's going to play 3 different tanks, as well as one of them's going to be Roadhog. So I'm going to critique Roadhog kind of in between, like how he used to play and how he plays now, kind of point out some things that could, help you out playing Roadhog now. So let's jump right in and take a look. So starting off, you guys are on attack on King's Row. Now obviously one round has already played out. The other team looks like they've already attacked. So you're going to go ahead and get your turn. Your team's going to be running what looks like a pretty standard dive comp. The Zarya is a little bit of a weird pick, but I think he actually switches to Reinhardt. But we'll go with what you're running now. You're running Winston now, which in this comp could actually work pretty well, as long as Lucio stays pretty aggressive. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so we can jump ahead.
Correct.
Okay, then you call it on whoever.
They're hiding, playing left side. They have Torb, I think.
Oh, they do.
Holy shit! Yo, just play corner point. Play this corner point. Play this corner point.
So they're playing pretty far back. So starting off, they're playing pretty far back. So you're going to have a hard time getting to them as Winston without really exposing yourself. This is where you're going to lean heavily on your Pharah, your Mercy, and your Lucio. If any one of them commits, or if all of them commit, then you need to jump in and go after them, which you can actually see how that plays out. Basically, Pharah commits and nobody helps her out, so she gets shot out of the sky almost immediately.
Yeah, we should just play this corner point.
I can't do anything as Tracer.
Oh, you're about to, Billy.
Don't.
So Pharah's in there now. She just pretty much gets shot out of the sky. At that point, as Winston, you are the aggressor. Winston generally sets the pace for the attack, especially since your other tank is Zarya. So you should be jumping in there and trying to do what damage you can. They run a pretty heavy shield barrier comp with Torbjorn, Winston, and Orisa. So you could definitely get in there and do some work because Winston ignores all shields. So barriers, I shouldn't say shields, barriers. So instead you kind of hang out on this corner, which you guys did lose a person, so you should fall back. But hanging out in this corner as Winston, you're basically doing nothing. So this is the first point when you drop your shield. You're not really protecting anything at this point with this shield. You guys are safely behind the corner, so you got to be a little more careful on your shield use. And the only reason I'm really pointing it out now is because you do it a couple of times. This one really isn't that bad, but bubble management is probably one of the most important things you can learn as Winston. It's the one thing that I had to be coached on, at least pertaining to Winston. My bubble usage was pretty bad until I actually had somebody take a look at it, a high-level Winston player, top 500 Winston player, and he really pointed out the fact that you want to use your bubble not at the last possible moment, but the second to last possible moment, when it can benefit your whole team. And this bubble doesn't really benefit any of your team.
That was like that.
We need a shield, and all we need to do is play corner point.
So you get a little aggressive, you go in behind. This honestly should have been the route you took the first time. Now you guys have lost 2. You should honestly just fall back.
Yeah.
Instead they clean you up.
We need a Ryan, 100%.
Yeah, get right.
Yeah,
Put him on
yeah.
keeper.
Now since this is what they're, what they're running, you guys switch your comp up, and this is where Zarya goes Ryan, and you switch to D.Va.
You need to just eat everything.
Which is actually a pretty good idea, but your Tracer probably should have switched to a soldier.
Back up, back up.
Back up. Retreat.
But granted, these are 4K DPS players, so if they can play Tracer, they can play Tracer.
Just to get
Especially BNet player. I've seen him on some streams, so he can definitely do it. Just ideal comp probably would have been soldier. Oh, you guys pull out a soldier there, so there you go.
They're all together so well that I can actually get
I honestly probably would have kept Pharah, but this works.
Yeah, we should do something.
get this, Winston.
So right here, you commit to attacking as D.Va and what your healer calls out that Winston's dived on them. Now D.Va's defense matrix doesn't stop Winston, as everybody knows, but you can peel as Winston. D.Va versus Winston is actually one of the hardest counters in the game. Winston does such little damage to that 200 armor that as long as you're with a healer, you're going to kill him, or you're going to force him to back off and save your healer.
He's on our supports.
Just keep me alive.
I don't have any shields
Oh
left.
shit!
So you can see
I gotta reset.
your 76 goes back and helps them out.
I'm down.
Meanwhile, it's pretty much just an all-out brawl. As D.Va, you use your defense matrix a lot, which is good. And this is actually going to be one of your overall D.Va points, but we'll pop it in now. Using it a lot is good. It's way better than not using it at all, because damage removal is D.Va's prime role. But you use it a little too much. You basically have to learn the times when it's okay to let a few people take damage, and the times you want to save. Now in this comp, there's not much you can do against it. You're going to be out of defense matrix a lot. When they switch later, there's going to be a lot more instances where you should kind of pick and choose. So res comes out, counter res comes out. Basically, welcome to the Mercy meta. And they just pick you off.
Miss bomb.
Honest, should we get a Bastion just to wreck these shields? No, okay.
Alright, I have a shatter for this.
So your team, being as coordinated as you guys are, since this is actually a CowLeague game, do the right thing and hold off. Once you spawn, they all start coming in.
I almost
Now
have
right here, again, this is a little over-aggression. You get right in the middle, you start, defense matrixing what you see, but Soldier actually popped off to your left, so he's going to have a clear shot at you. You probably would have been better off hanging out at the doorway and defense matrixing your Rhine that's coming in from the right, and keeping an eye on the Soldier as well as your DPS that's on the left. So you just basically get destroyed out of your mech. Now your team does pull it back. You get absolutely wrecked by the Zen. Not much you guys could have did there.
I'm on Zen.
Winston's on the point. Can we kill this Winston, please?
But your team pretty much pulls it back.
Thank you.
So overall, actually a pretty clean fight. You guys only lost one.
Coming in.
I have bomb. That's fine. He can't do anything.
They switched off Torb and Orisa. They
Now
have
see, that would have been an
self-
instance where I probably wouldn't have defense matrix. I probably would have took some damage just to build some support ults. If they had, somebody shooting you.
I can switch to Reaper. I'm pretty good Reaper.
One thing I could probably point out here is, while you guys have a little bit of downtime, you could fly up to this window and take a peek down that hallway, and you can see if anybody's set up down there. Just a little more information, and then you can always drop back down and rejoin your team, or you can pursue high ground if you really want. Honestly, in this situation, I would drop back down and be with your team, because you're playing against some pretty good players. Just remember, the D.Va has a lot of mobility, so in downtime, use it to reposition yourself where you can get the most information or you can have the most impact.
Alright.
2 CP. Or, I mean, 2.
Shatter.
2.0 deep, thank God.
Yeah. I saw that.
Says I'm breaking shield.
I can switch back to Hog too.
Speed boosting now.
Kill. Let's shoot shatter.
Throw a defense matrix out a few times when you didn't really need it,
Mercy's one.
like right there.
Reinhardt's just back here kicking my
Defense
ass.
matrix
We
doesn't
got
stop
him.
Reinhardt hammer,
Oh, you're fine.
so I'm sure that was just a panic.
I'm going high ground. I'm gonna go behind them high ground.
That was actually a 6 shatter.
Yeah, that was like a 5 or 6 man shatter.
That was their whole team, literally.
So just pushing the cart.
Yeah, they're right
Again,
on
you
the
could have been a
side.
little more aggressive. You guys have 4 on the cart, so you could have pushed forward a little bit. Just played the corners a little more. Got the high ground.
Oh, she just shielded the grenade.
That means you know, so just have grenade.
Speed boosting now.
Anna's out of the fight. I'm ulted. Killing Mercy. Mercy dead. I'm dead.
Nice.
I know.
Alright, so we're going to go back and take a look at that.
Do didn't have anything.
If they take this fight,
So, you, like I said, you could play the corners. You see soldiers coming out.
Diana's
You
half,
defense matrix.
shield and grenade.
At this point, you have a couple of options. You could have A, gotten very aggressive and boosted into him to knock him back into B-net player and out of line of sight of their team. Or you could basically do it the way you did and play a little more passively, try to get in his face and use defense matrix. I probably would have went a little more aggressive here just because Soldier was way out of position and you could have got a pretty easy pick, especially with the caliber of your DPS. But there's nothing wrong with playing defensive at this point. Just another instance where you probably could have saved defense matrix. One Soldier isn't going to hurt you, especially with both your healers behind you.
So just one half grenade.
Speed boosting now.
So you go in and you get slightly behind the Reinhardt and you drop your ult. I think the idea behind this is you either A, want to get a pick or you want to force the Reinhardt back off the point so you guys can cap the point. This is actually a really good ult, but it could be a little bit better had you just lobbed it over the Reinhardt, because then that would have forced the Reinhardt to either A, make a mad dash backwards, or B, turn around and block the ult. Depending on the caliber of Reinhardt, the right answer would be to back up even further and then use your shield to block it. But you can catch some Reinhardts unaware and they'll turn around and use their shield to block it. And they may live, but their teammates might not. Or, you know, their team could have been coordinated, and had you lobbed it over, their team could have either rushed forward and got behind the Reinhardt shield that turned around, or they would have scattered. But either way, it would have made their team a lot more vulnerable rather than just pushing them back.
Diana's out of the fight. I'm ulted. Killing Mercy, killing Mercy. Mercy dead, I'm dead.
Nice.
Anna's on the left. That's fine. I got point.
Yeah, they pressed me.
Okay, looks like we're trying to steamroll them. We have to.
Now you're doing the right thing, defense matrix Ana. D.Va's a pretty hard counter to Ana just because she can completely shut down her healing.
That's probably a better choice.
Good aggression on the Roadhog.
And then I'm gonna try and bomb their Ryan.
I'm at another earth shatter soon.
Oh,
So again, this is an opportunity you could kind of position yourself a little better. You could have took the high ground, got some information.
Speeding for boot.
Soldier 1 HP.
Yeah, I couldn't get it. Zarya's looking for grab, I think.
So right here you go after the Mercy. It's a little bit of misguided aggression. Your job as D.Va is to protect the rest of your team.
Zarya's low.
And had you been back, you probably could have saved, maybe not saved your Reinhardt because he got hooked off, but you could have saved some of your other DPS.
Can we win this? Can we win this? I can hold.
There's 3 to left.
I'm down.
I'm back up.
In those situations, you're almost never going to kill Mercy. There's just
Did they shatter?
nothing you can do.
No,
They can fly away.
Yeah,
Their flight is less of a cooldown than yours, so they're always going to be able to get away from you, unless you can pin them in a corner and another team are in LOS.
I'm trying to bomb fucking Mercy or something. I can never get the run because he always gets bubbled.
Speed boosting now.
Yeah, Soldier 1 HP. Nice.
Get the Ryan if we can.
Good reflexes, stopping yourself from getting hooked.
Oh, what the fuck?
On hog, on point, hog, on point.
Roadhog got me.
Meanwhile, your team's cleaning up on the point.
It's all good.
I'm gonna go up and try
Many
and
on card
stall.
as possible.
You get it, 3 on card.
Good aggression on the soldier. That's absolutely what you want to do in this situation, is you want to try to block the doors.
Good job, guys.
D.Va has such a big hitbox, you can actually block one of those whole doors just by standing there.
66. 6.
Overall, a pretty good round. We'll go over your D.Va whole at the end, your whole, takeaways. So we'll go ahead and skip all this nonsense, and we'll get into the start of this round.
Oh, we're going.
He just laughed.
Here, hold on.
So here we go. Here's your team for attack on Route 66. This is where you're going to be playing Roadhog. You guys actually run a solid, like super solid 2-2-2 comp. This is basically the omnipotent 2-2-2. You got Pharmacy, you've got Soldier behind Reinhardt, and then you've also got Lucio and Roadhog, so you can speed boost in if you want to get in there. This doesn't work quite as well now after the Roadhog changes, but at the time this is definitely the way to go if you want to run a 2-2-2. The other option would have been running D.Va instead of Roadhog if you want to be a little more defensive. But I think this is absolutely the right choice for this map on this patch.
I ate shit for that.
So good job. You're doing Roadhog's job of breaking the shield.
Their Ryan fell.
I got McCree off. I got McCree.
He got a lot of them down.
But you miss. You miss that easy hook on Reinhardt. And you're going to miss a lot. And I'm not going to point all of them out, but I did count them. So we'll go over that at the end. Because that hurts as a Roadhog player.
Great. Nice. Get this
But you're doing the right thing. You're following up on Reinhardt. He's out of position.
Heal, be net player, heal him.
Oh, I'm dead. The fair. I just got
There's a soldier and someone else on the high ground. Soldier and a...
There's a good hook on Soldier. You actually pull him out of his healing station, so that's on cooldown. He's way out of position. You actually could have meleeed him here, and he probably wouldn't have died, but he would have been very, very close to dying. You could have followed it up with another left click to kill him.
Oh, dude, I didn't kill Soldier with the hook.
He gets away, but your Soldier takes him out.
Back up top again.
Half HP, Anna.
Good job breaking the shield. Miss another
Get this,
pretty
Ryan.
easy hook. But you're doing the right thing. You're getting in the face.
Get the Anna.
Oh boy. Oh, I'm screwed.
That's a hook. Okay, I'll stop pointing them out now unless they're really, really bad hooks.
Yeah, I was trying to get that.
So overall, I didn't give too much overall info on that first point, just because you guys did really well on that first point. There's not much I can really criticize as a team play. I could only point out, the missed hooks and a couple of small positioning things. But overall, you did really well on the first point. You were behind Ryan 90% of the time. You went for picks when you could get them. Overall, that was almost a perfect first point push.
They have two with a bad spot.
I have aimbot, I have aimbot.
Oh, I might have just fucked up. I made a mistake.
So just half, so
I
just
thought
half.
Mercy was with me. Heal me, please.
Come down, come down. Oh, shit.
I
So
can't.
just still
I can't.
have.
So your Pharah gets a little
Sorry.
little aggressive and pays for it,
Sorry.
but that's okay. Their team at this point really doesn't know what they're doing. They're scrambling to set up on high ground.
They have a Hanzo? No, never mind. They don't.
Shields at 600. I gotta back off for a sec.
I'm gonna go boop them off.
They have double hit scan. I should probably switch, honestly. I didn't realize. They just kept missing, so I didn't really care.
Good job breaking the shield.
Yep, I'm going boop them.
Oh my god.
A little bit of an odd choice to hook there, but
Oh,
now this is a great ult.
Same bonding from behind.
Soldier,
You get him, you almost get the Zarya, and you actually almost get the Mercy
there's someone on the
until you
point.
hook her, and then you get her. So that was a solid ult.
Uh-oh, hammered.
There's Zarya grabs.
That's Zarya.
Ryan's one, Ryan's one.
They blew all their ults. Like, that's literally all their ults.
I have my ultimate almost.
Yeah, I'm at 80% for my res.
Okay, I have dropped the beat now.
I'm coming with you, Farah.
Where's Anna?
If I die, I got it. I was like, if I die to this Anna, it's embarrassing.
This is really good positioning. This is actually what I wish you would have did on your D.Va. Is got a little more aggressive with your positioning. But you basically keep them locked in that room and take the point for free. So you guys, what I want to point out on the second point is, again, I could only really nitpick, but you guys only won team fight on that second point, and you took it. So that was actually a huge misplay on the defense. You should be able to get at least 2 fights, depending on where you defend 3 points. So it was a little odd that they did that.
God, he's going back.
So Soldier, their Soldiers playing Secret Agent, trying to flank you guys from behind. It's just a little
He's up
little
on-
odd that he's so far out of position.
What is this guy doing?
He is dead now, though.
As your team points out, it's rather odd.
Kill this hawk, half HP.
shatter. That's a big shatter.
I can't do anything. Sorry.
Oh, I'm down.
So that was unfortunate that he had to reload.
I should have called that out better.
Let's,
Sorry about
let's
that,
just
guys.
keep up the pressure, but don't use ult.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could hear that, but that was a sigh. That was such an easy pick on Mercy. You should have definitely landed that hook.
Roadhog behind, Roadhog behind.
Oh, yep. Don't use any ult still unless we're all here.
So they basically wipe your team.
Don't
Going
use
off?
res even. Don't use res.
Down. Okay.
You land the hook there.
We're just so close to spawn, there's no reason to use res.
Alright, we win next fight. We have B and I have aimbot, so.
So you guys have a pretty strong push coming up. You guys have a lot of ultimates to work with.
Go up or so you can hit me with B.
Fairly good cart position still. It's not real far forward.
Let me know when to
So you
hit
can definitely get in there and set up.
Alright, I'm upper. Actually, I'm just aimbotting now.
Okay. I'm not
Mercy
gonna
down.
And
You got the Tracer behind you.
They have a Hanzo.
Tracer's hard to hit when you're doing 1v1 on Roadhog if she's
There's a tracer behind.
definitely
Go ahead.
focusing on you.
yo, Ryan needs heals.
But you try your best. You definitely keep her contained. She knows she can't win in a one-on-one open fight, so she's got to, you know, hit and run. This is a really good ult.
Tracer's
I am so
behind.
proud of that ult. Doing good there. And you guys take it.
GG. Or good round.
Excuse me. So, over the last round, I can't nitpick any team stuff because you guys as a team were ridiculous. Like, you guys were unstoppable. I mean, you could see it. You had one death that whole round. So, that was pretty impressive. We're going to go into the next one, and then we're going to go over your full Roadhog. But, overall, really solid Roadhog round.
NG.
So,
So you're going to play Roadhog on defense. This is a good point. You know, this is exactly what you want to do as Roadhog is staying behind that Reinhardt shield.
Looks like they got Winston's and Meg.
Missed the hook there,
Break his bubble, break his
but they have a
bubble.
monkey.
1 HP still, 1 HP.
I think that was just bad timing. Honestly, once you know they have a monkey, you kind of want to save that hook for the monkey when he jumps in, because that almost guarantees a kill on him. Your team can pretty much light him up at that point. With the new Roadhog, it's a lot harder for you to solo kill him with the hook. But if you get good at leading your right clicks, you can actually shoot him out of the air because you shoot so fast now. Just one thing to keep in mind.
Genji dead. I don't
Gotta
have-
get this Pharaoh.
I can't.
Good hook on Ana. Too bad there's not much follow-up.
Tracer behind?
You got a Tracer behind you.
You're alone, Jack.
Afraid from their attacks.
Mercy's 1 HP wherever she is. I got her.
Can't get to you,
I'm
Ryan.
really low. I'm down.
You probably should have been able to hook that monkey there, but you guys got him.
You
Maybe
almost
on
back
aimbot.
here, Anna.
Oh, no, Mercy. I'm
Gotcha.
scared.
Oh my
I
god,
almost
I took
got
it wrong.
I got you.
I'm 85 on aimbot.
Hello. Oh my god. You missed me.
So you get booped off, so you decide to go a little aggressive because you see how close Farah is. You go for the right target, you just miss her again. That's a slippery Mercy.
I'm dead.
Oh, I'm down.
I fucking killed you. Oh, okay. Bricks actually have the same level.
You should have hit that Ana.
Genji's one.
Some of these hooks are pretty
While I'm
easy
there, I need
to
area
hit,
support. There's a tracer of me.
so it's kind of bad you're missing them.
I'm low.
That one you hit, but she blinks out of it.
Mercy's at a quarter if you can kill her.
That sleep though.
Uh-oh.
Ah.
Tracer.
That's a pretty funny ult and then counter ult.
I think they're still gonna.
You were doing the right thing there. They basically just outplayed you guys, and then your Farah outplayed their Farah.
I'm going with Reinhardt. Oh wait, I'll go top.
Oh god. I need heals.
So you should be able to hook the Genji, instead you get the Winston, so your Genji gets a kill, or their Genji gets a kill on your Ana.
You're alone.
Anna 1. Anna 1 HP right now.
I can only get one.
Oh.
That was a good hook on Farah. That was definitely the target you wanted to get. That's a pretty good ult. Space created. Alright, I want to go back and watch this one in slow motion, because this is actually a pretty interesting hook. So we're going to go... I think it's in a playback. Speed, here we go. Slower. Alright, here we go. Playback. Speed. Slower. There we go. You can see it actually hook. You throw it from Mercy, which is the right target, and then, but it hits Tracer right as she blinks, and then decides to go back to Mercy. So, just a little fun thing I caught. Either way, you get to kill a Mercy. Which is absolutely what you were trying to do and what you wanted to do, but then you get stuck.
Oops, I accidentally canceled.
So they get first point.
Getting dogs, I way too much.
Yeah, they're running something else. I don't know.
I think I might be better off.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time.
Honestly, not too much happens here. They pretty much just outplay you guys.
Should I switch?
They're running a pretty heavy dive comp. You're actually talking about it now that you want to switch to Winston or D.Va to counter the dive comp, which is the right call. Great reaction time. That was amazing reaction time.
Ready?
Got us half.
Try to kill Mercy. Mercy 1 HP.
You should have hooked the Mercy there.
I'm down. Fuck this Genji.
I got slept.
I got Mercy. I'm gonna kill Anna now. Maybe not. Got
Fair
bait.
enough.
So you guys are basically just brawling, trading out. It's gone so long, Tracer's back. Genji ults. Not much you guys could really do there.
Yeah, we need a Winston.
Alright, switching to Winston.
But you make the good switch to Winston, which is absolutely what you want to do.
I'm gonna come out.
This way you can peel for your healers. You can also be aggressive if you want. Your Ryan switches to Zarya just to complement the Winston.
Safe out here. It's pretty aim bot anyway.
Every game bot.
See, you guys actually get a second fight. So there's a barrier you use there. This one isn't as bad. This is actually a decent barrier, just because your team's all in that hallway.
We're done.
I'm not on shield.
But now it's time to push forward. I think you missed that jump. I had trouble telling what. I had trouble trying to tell what you were exactly trying to accomplish there. You look up like you want to jump up top, but then you kind of just don't. So maybe you just make the most of it.
Hiding.
They nanoed the Winston.
I'm down.
It's okay, we're up.
Either way, you had pretty good target selection, except for their Mercy was hiding somewhere.
Fuck, Tracer dead.
That's a pretty good bubble right on the cart. It shuts down their Ana. Ana comes in and sleeps you.
Yep. Should I go to Lucio?
You're a little outplayed by that Genji, but he had the support of his whole team, so there really wasn't too much you could have did in that situation.
Yeah, I need some sort of movement. But I am just dying in dive comp.
I don't know what the fuck to switch to.
We can honestly just do Mercy. Yeah, die too much.
So you know what's coming up. I know what's coming up.
Okay.
But
Choose one. Fuck.
I'll definitely point out what you do. So
We gotta wait.
you take a rocket there, a Pharah rocket. You take a lot of damage right there from Tracer, and then you decide to pursue her.
Bob, come back so we can heal you.
So your team calls it out. You just got over aggressive as Winston. Like I said, Winston is the aggressor, but you have to know when to do it. And you were so low health, you're not going to beat a Tracer with that amount of health. And a good Tracer can actually beat a Winston 90% of the time one-on-one anyway, because she can just stay out of range of you. So if in future 1v1s versus Tracer, you're probably better off just going back and rejoining your team and waiting for her to engage on you.
He's super deep.
She was so close to dead.
Oh my god, I'm dead.
No, you're not.
Mercy, I love you.
So Genji takes out your Pharaoh with the help of Ana. Genji takes out your Mercy. So you guys are actually falling. So one little bit of target selection, not that I think it really matters in this particular instance because there's not much you can do, but you always want to target Genji over Tracer, especially if Genji's dash is on cooldown, which it was at that point. You could easily follow that Genji and put a lot of harassment. I don't know if you could have killed him in this situation, but it's possible.
You could do Tracer, yeah.
Said they just blow you up.
I'm almost all. I'll just wait.
Tracer one. Tracer. Oh my god, dude, this Ana keeps nading.
Yeah, she keeps sleeping me.
Fuck this Tracer.
I'm low.
Fuck it.
Mercy dead.
You're track, you're alone.
Yep.
Perfect.
Ana top right, I'm going for it.
It was strange that the Tracer stuck around to try to fight that,
She made a mistake by punching me. Wall.
knowing that it was like 1v6.
I'm gonna stand.
Especially throwing her ult into that. That was not a good play. So you guys are doing the right thing. You're playing on the card at this point because of how close it is. Watching the flanks. You guys are actually using pretty good team communication to pay attention.
They're gonna have rest here, and maybe
Oh my god, I got
Genji
the record
blade.
again.
I got directed too.
They're probably gonna have nano blade. Yep. No.
No, none of my cases.
Left side.
That was a pretty good barrier attempt
Oh,
and a great
Elevator took her out.
help from the platform.
Got her.
But that's basically all of my criticisms you just fixed in this fight. You're doing what you're supposed to as Winston.
He's
That
fine.
you know, basically that is what you want to do.
They swapped
You had good target selection. You disrupted.
Ana, yo, wasn't she just right here?
Just
You had to watch a Pharah kill herself up close.
Okay.
Yeah, if we die on car for Mercy.
I have her.
So that was a little bit of a miscue on a barrier. You could have definitely saved that barrier for something more. Ryan's shield is not full, but not hurting either.
Go on a car. That as close as I can.
Reinhardt gets very aggressive.
Got both. Got two.
How many?
Genji's 1 HP.
Mercy and soldiers down.
It's Genji. He's one tap.
That was a good shield.
Because this is end.
Shutting off teammate support, so it's just Genji versus Tracer. And also disrupting their honest heals. It was a good ult.
Oh my god.
It's okay, Soldier's still dead. Soldier's still dead. Mercy.
Tracer in the back.
This is why you never
Wizard up.
reveal
You guys basically know you have to commit. Great target selection of that Ana for the follow-up kill.
All this is a monkey to Genji.
Now it's just to clean up.
Genji's one.
Winston jumps away from the cart. I don't know why.
We did it!
That was very strange.
Champions, we get
I don't know. You want to stall with Winston's ult. So you use your ult almost mostly offensively. Very few times do you actually use it for the other usage, which is to stall. You could see that Winston used his ult to stall to try to, keep the game alive long enough for his team to come back and turn it around. But I guess he gets a little confused because then he gets aggressive and basically, I don't want to say costs them the game, but definitely kind of throws overtime. So we'll go ahead and watch the play of the game,
First time I make it past. We didn't lose a
and then we'll go to the takeaways.
That's pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah. GG everyone.
I could really use
GG.
Yeah, can you guys go ahead and accept my friend request?
Of course it's a mercy res. I don't know why I thought it would be anything different.
All day.
Ooh.
I never get I thought that was you. I was like, I never get rest.
Wow. Look at you. 23 objective eliminations. So you were on the point. Alright, so let's go over overall takeaways. We're going to start with Winston, since you played a fair amount of him. Aggression. I said it during the video, and I'm going to repeat it now. Aggression, you need to learn when to be aggressive and when to not be aggressive with Winston. Aggression is Winston's primary... I don't want to say his primary job, because Winston has a lot of jobs, but you definitely control the pace as Winston. If you have a well-coordinated team like this, when you say, alright, let's go, or if someone else says, let's go, you should be, right in there with it. You need to trust your healers to keep you alive, especially if you have a Lucio and a Mercy. You should be pretty well covered to dive in, because Lucio should follow you guys in. Bubble usage, I mentioned this multiple times. Think a little bit more about how you want to use your bubbles. Winston, since there's no, I don't want to say there's no aim requirement, but there's very low aim requirement. You should be thinking about positioning, bubble usage, and overall just what you can do to harass the team the most. So learn when your bubble is going to have a high impact. Learn when you should use your bubble to, save yourself, to harass. Learn to use your bubble when you can interrupt on his heals. Basically, just think a little bit more about your bubble usage, because it's a fairly long cooldown, and it really changes how Winston plays when his bubble's up and when it isn't. Other than that, stay line of sight of your healers. There are a few times you definitely forgot that your healers were like Ana or Zenyatta. You guys didn't really run as Zen, but just keep in mind as Winston, you can get out of line of sight of your healers very easily. Alright, so D.Va. You only play D.Va for a little bit, basically the one round. But we're going to go over some generic D.Va tips. You actually played D.Va pretty well. There were just a few instances where you were too aggressive, and some instances where you could have did a couple other things better. So defense matrix is the big one. D.Va's role is damage removal. So make sure you're paying attention to how you use your defense matrix. Now, that initial comp you went up against as D.Va, like I said, you're going to be out of defense matrix a lot for that comp, because there is no ideal time to use your defense matrix other than to save your Rhine shield, because there is no big, I'm going to save you moments. Like, save you moments I kind of define as like Mei freezing someone and then trying to right click them, Roadhog hooking people, stuff like that, clear cut instances where you can save a person's life. Later on, when they switched to Roadhog, you were still using your defense matrix like you're running against that shield Torbjorn comp. You really want to be saving your defense matrix when you're playing against a Roadhog for hooks. Now, I'm not saying, never use it, but you always want to make sure you have enough to use it if someone gets hooked. It's just something you want to pay attention to. And especially since they weren't really running a D.Va at that point, you guys had the advantage in the shield war anyway, so you could have definitely taken advantage of that. Use downtime to reposition, look for high ground, try to get as much information as you can. D.Va and Winston both have a lot of mobility, so use that to your advantage. Finally, just kind of work on your ult lobbing. I only saw one really, so I can't overall criticize your overall ult usage. So I'd like to see some more D.Va usage from you. Maybe get like an offensive ult rather than a stall ult or a pushback ult. Just, again, think about how you can use your ult to have the most impact and try to put the team most out of position. Because when you're playing in this level, like the higher levels, D.Va's ult is not used as much to secure kills unless you have a really solid tank player or someone that can, actively mitigate shields. But it's more so used for creating space. Lastly, Roadhog, Mr. Hog himself. Now he's gone through a lot of changes, so fundamentally the way you play Roadhog is a little different now. You actually rely more on your right and left clicks, but in your instance, you need to land the hooks. You missed, and I didn't count some of the BS, like I'm just throwing a hook out to see if I can get a pick type of hook. Like actual hooks you were trying to land, you missed 17 hooks. And I can tell you at least 5 of those were against a Mercy that was just floating through the air. So you just need to work on leading your hooks a little better. That's the big thing for Roadhog, just land the hooks. Work on your right click a little more. You were great at breaking the shield, but your actual like leading the shots with right click needed a little more work. Sorry I'm being a little vague with Roadhog. It's hard to watch old Roadhog and try to translate that into new one. Because like I said, he is a little different. You can't rely on the hook one-shot kill anymore, but you still need to land the hooks. Other than that, work on your combos. There were a lot of times that you would hook someone and you would shoot them and you wouldn't melee. There's almost no instance now where you wouldn't want to melee someone after you hook them. So the way Roadhog plays now, everybody's set it on paper, but basically the ideal combo is to right click, hook, take a step forward, shoot, melee. And you can't do this against every character, obviously, because there's characters like Genji that can deflect, Tracer that can blink, Ana that can sleep. You know, but ideally that is the combo. So just keep that in mind. Overall, you guys played great as a team. It's CowLeague, so I expect you guys to do really well as a team. You had 2 phenomenal DPS players, so you kind of got relegated to tank, and I was really interested to watch you play the tanks. You could be, a pretty mean tank player, just watching your overall mechanics and your thought processes. I personally like playing tanks more than DPS, but I don't get a lot of opportunity to do it, just because you do have to rely on your team a lot as a tank, especially as Winston and D.Va. Winston mostly, but D.Va as well. You have to learn to trust your healers and make sure your DPS are getting kills. But overall, you did really good. I mean, you guys won, so can't really fault you there. But I think I've said "but" like 8 times now. So we're going to wrap this up. I hope that helps. I'm sorry this one was a little late. A lot of stuff came up. I had some sick kids, had some birthdays, had a lot of job stuff, had to rebuild a computer in between it. So the next ones are going to be coming out, much more timely than this one. I'm trying to get back to the old schedule. Otherwise, see you guys next time.